The first significant desktop computer was introduced in 1965 by DEC for the very reasonable price of $19,000. Hi, I'm Dan Gleason, and I'd like to share with you the phenomenal growth of mini, micro, and personal computers. Introduced in January 1975, the Altair 8800 was far from the first personal computer, but was the first truly successful one. The Altair is generally credited with launching the PC revolution. Microsoft was founded to make software that was compiled in BASIC for the Altair. The Altair was named from a Star Trek episode, A Voyage to Altair. The 256-byte computer kit sold for $397, or you could order a fully built one for about $550, but it took several months to receive. Apple Computer was founded in 1976 by Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. Both were college dropouts. Jobs was a brilliant salesman, Wozniak a talented engineer interested in designing PCs for users without the technical skills of the hobbyist. Their first product, the Apple I, was released later that year. A custom-built product in a wooden case, which sold relatively few copies. Out of the 200 or so made, about 175 were sold. These units were wholesaled for $500 each and carried a $666 retail price. The Apple II changed the entire microcomputer business. No longer did component soldering techies hang out at electronics stores. The Apples came completely built and ready to run. The Apple users were much more oriented towards the software and graphic applications. They were more interested in what a computer did than how it did it. The earliest Apple IIs read and stored information on cassette tapes, which were unreliable and slow. By 1978, Wozniak had invented the Apple Disk II. At the time, the fastest and cheapest disk drive offered by any computer manufacturer. By the end of 1978, Apple was the fastest growing company in the United States, with its products carried at over 100 dealers. In 1979, Apple introduced the Apple II Plus and the company's first printer. By the end of the year, sales were up 400% from 1978, at over 35,000 computers. Apple Fortran, introduced in March 1980, led to the further development of software, particularly technical and educational applications. In 1980, Apple went public. Its offering of 4.6 million shares at $22 each sold out within minutes. A second offering of 2.6 million shares quickly sold out in May of 1981. By January 1982, 650,000 Apple computers had been sold worldwide. In December 1982, Apple became the first computer company to reach $1 billion in annual sales. But in August 1981, the world's largest computer company finally responded to the personal computer boom when IBM introduced its own personal computer. The IBM PC was an immediate success, selling out distributors, pushing the company to ramp up production far beyond initial plans. In 1981, IBM sold 35,000 PCs. The next year, Apple lost its position as chief supplier of personal computers in Europe to IBM and tried to challenge IBM in the business market with the Lisa computer. Lisa introduced the mouse and displayed pictures on the computer screen that substituted for keyboard commands. These innovations came out of Jobs' determination to design a non-imitating computer that anyone could use. In 1983, IBM sold 800,000 personal computers, making IBM PCs the most popular computer in the world. Launched with a television commercial in January 1984, the Macintosh was unveiled soon after, with a price tag of $2,495, a new 3-inch disk drive that was faster than the 5¼ drives used in other machines, including the Apple II. Apple sold 70,000 Macintosh computers in the first 100 days. In 1985, Steve Jobs leaves Apple and founds NeXT Computer with $7 million of his own money. In 1987, Ross Perot invests $20 million in NeXT for a 16% control. With another $5 million from Steve Jobs, that brings the net worth of NeXT up to $126 million. Steve Jobs uses Perot funding to build a factory capable of producing 150,000 units annually. All told, only 50,000 make it out the door. In December 1996, Apple needs the technology to survive and buys NeXT for $429 million. In order to catch up with the rapid pace of the PC industry, IBM ditched its traditional product development strategy, designing their personal computer. Normally, developing a new product at IBM took 3 years. One reason for the slow pace was IBM preferred to manufacture all parts in-house and capture as much of the profits as possible. The IBM PC, by contrast, went from conception to store shelves in only 1 year. IBM managed this feat by outsourcing much of its development, bringing in parts and software from outside vendors. One component IBM outsourced was the underlying software which allowed programs to function, the operating system. At the time, this didn't seem distinctively important, no more than, say, the CPU or power supply. And so IBM ended up licensing its disk operating system from a small software company named Microsoft. Microsoft actually didn't have the resources to develop the software itself either. Instead, it bought the rights to DOS from a local software company, Seattle Computer Products, for $30,000. Microsoft sold it as MS-DOS and received a royalty between $10 and $50 for every computer sold with its software installed. It was the revenue and leverage provided by this arrangement that allowed Microsoft to become the dominant company in the computer industry within a decade. IBM's market share and profit margins fell quickly, squeezed by low-cost clone makers such as Compaq and Dell. MS-DOS, on the other hand, didn't require an IBM PC, but any IBM-compatible PC. PC hardware turned out to be a commodity business in which competition among multiple producers of interchangeable, easily copied products drove prices into the ground. Software was where the real profit margins lay. The only computer company to successfully buck this development was Apple, which in 1984 introduced a new piece of hardware which contained proprietary software, the Macintosh operating system. Did you know the graphical user interface, or GUI system everyone knows and uses today on all PCs, was invented in the late 70s by Xerox? Had Xerox known what they had and patented the GUI, even at a very conservative royalty rate of 1% of sales, the license fees that Xerox might have earned just between 1984 and 98 from sales of Macintosh and Windows operating systems are estimated to have topped $500 million.